All right, welcome back. Today I'm interviewing Frank Waardenburg. He is a retired financial advisor. He is a hula dancer. He's of Indonesian heritage. He's one of the most incredible people that I know, and you're about to fall in love with him because he's also hilarious and never takes anything too seriously. And I am going to read off the official bio for Frank van Waardenburg. So in the 1990s, he was in securities sales. Being a curious fellow, he became interested in what makes markets rise and fall. He began to develop an instinct about stocks that would rise, and toward the end of the 90s, his gut felt queasy about the stock market's highs that just made no sense. So he stopped selling securities and he advised his clients to move their money. And then you have the tech bubble burst. After that, he became a mortgage broker and he witnessed the housing bubble bursting real estate markets. He had been studying cycles, including the Mayan Calendar and astrology, and began lecturing about his findings. His conclusion was that real estate would be gutted, and he was right. He advised selling real estate and buying gold instead. Real estate tanked worldwide at that time, so he predicted both of those downfalls. And it actually helped a ton of my clients because I had him come and this is Baloo behind me. I had him come and talk to them in 2007 and get them prepped. And to this day, people thank me for connecting him at that time. Frank continues to look at cycles through astrology. Also, for over 25 years, he's studied the lives of mystics and has been posting content on social media about their radically different views on life. So he's got a really awesome Facebook and Instagram feed that you should check out. It's Frank van Waardenburg, and we'll have information in the description of this video. He's on Instagram, Waardenburg Frank Van, and you can follow him, and he's just hilarious. I mean, I gotta tell you, he's such a character. He's this, doesn't take anything too seriously. He's got an easy laugh. He's been through a lot of shit in his life. And so rather than being jaded, he's just funny. So he just has an incredible humor. And I really think you're going to enjoy this interview. Once again, some of the things he says might really piss you off. So put that bubble around you, have a nice filter, and anything that just doesn't resonate with you, it doesn't have to come in. It can just, you can cancel it out. Everything that's in your highest good to hear and see and know can come right in.
Listen to the words I say. Good news is I'm sure you're free. Don't you listen to the words I say.
Hi, virtual you.
Hi, virtual Frank. Well, everyone is about to fall in love with you, Frank.
Okay.
I'm going to introduce you, and then you can introduce yourself. But you predicted the economic downturn in 2008, and you spent the year before warning my clients. You came and did several talks at my office, and to this day, people still say to me, "Thank you for bringing that guy Frank on. He helped me."
Sure. My name is Frank van Waardenburg, and I used to do financial work. I was in sales, and I sold financial products, including mutual funds. I did mortgages for quite a while. That's how I came to want to understand patterns. And when I found out that there were patterns in astrology, I got really, really excited. And in fact, there are patterns in astrology for everything, both your personal life. And how can we separate the financial? Because the financial is part of our personal life. And, we can't separate it. This is spiritual, this is financial. Well, it's a whole package thing. We came to this earth in order to be able to have a physical experience. And that's what we're having. I'm retired now, so I don't do much. But if I were to look at this, right, if your 401k is looking like it's dead and buried, it'll probably be back to where it was by the end of summer. And if you have more money to invest, they say invest when the market is down. But what people actually do is they get excited at the market peak, and that's when they invest, which of course that's not when you want to invest. this is a really great time to invest in the market. Like I say, I think by the end of summer, we may have forgotten about all this, but maybe not. I mean, think about the wonderful things that are happening today. Everybody is telecommuting and not clogging up the highways and burning up fuel.
The Earth's
and
resources,
we're finding that
we
it's
can
working
still do
just
it.
fine.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So
I agree with you.
That's likely to stay put. Yes.
I agree. I want to say something about that because I have a lot of people, probably 50% of my clients who call that could be telecommuting. A lot of the companies are like, well, we don't know. We need these big offices and these buildings, and we need to know you're doing work. The other 50%, the offices have figured it out. But I was like, now being forced, I can see the benefit of so many of my clients finally being able to say to their employers, see, like this is real. I've told you this. Also, following Frank on Instagram, I will put some of your posts up. You have awesome, hilarious posts. Frank Van Waardenburg on Instagram. I have puppies that are barking right now, but also you use dance a lot. Like you're a person who celebrates life. You are passionate about life, and I admire that so much about you. You're just always I'm part of your Facebook group that's all about dancing around town.
Oh yes,
you can't do it
Dancing
now,
Fool.
but Dancing Fool, yes, and you do celebrate Festivus every year.
Yes. Well, as you know, I was a hula dancer for many years. I was, and I've been doing now partners dancing for the last couple of years, and just enjoying the hell out of it. Body movement, the mind likes stillness. The body likes activity. And I think we really, and too many of us get neither. And so,
that is such a good point. Too many of us get neither, right? We don't move our bodies and we don't center our minds and sit into our souls. And so we're in this constant state of frenzied stress. So yes, dance or meditate. That's Frank's message.
Yes, a little project that, the antidote to everything is love, okay? That's the cure for everything, love, that's it. But we have some really limiting concepts about what love is. And so in studying the masters, I spent a full year doing social media postings every day, and I still can't do it because it's become a habit. Right now, I'm finally letting some of my humor, which is sometimes very Larry David-like, to emerge. Like, my first post with the drinking the cup, it was shut the hell up already. And I'm enjoying my daily cup of shut the hell up already because, it's really, really important to shut the hell up already. And so I'm putting together a kind of a test run of something, and it will be 40 days of love contemplation. And in fact, I want to share this with you a little bit later to see if volunteers would be interested in doing this with me, and see if a 40-day contemplation that you really spend 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, contemplating a few words about love from masters, and see if that doesn't change you after a 40-day period of time. And I think it will. I think it's guaranteed to actually change you. Some a little bit, some maybe a lot. And so anyway, that's one of my projects that I'm quite excited about. I'm
excited. Please share that when you have that, because I know people will be interested.
About them. And I know it's very freaky right now. Even the COVID virus is part of a cycle. Mm-hmm. And so we just have to be accepting of the way things are, and be prepared for what emerges. And what, if I go back to the talks I did back before 2012, the quote unquote end of the Mayan calendar, there really was an end of a cycle in 2012. The Mayas who study this didn't just come up with some arbitrary things. And so what we've seen since then is what the Mayan calendar really looked at was simply a condensation of creation, meaning that what we perceive as time going faster is actually a reflection of creation happening faster. So if we can just talk about the COVID virus, for example, this thing is probably going to go really, really fast. And I would say in China, where it seems to have originated, I think things are already under control. And so we're at the beginning of where China was maybe 6 months ago. And so I think the probability is that, and also I pay close attention to some astrologers, that they also see this as occurring fairly rapidly. And yes, there will be deaths and illness. And I think it's about time we get over death. There is no such thing.
Yeah, I love it.
We really are eternal beings inhabiting bodies. So get over it already. We just, I was talking with some friends people the other day, and somebody had just died. And they were, they were getting all, and I'm going like, well, it was this time. And
Totally.
I got some real looks. I'm feeling like Larry David these days, it was this time. So we just have to get over it. So people are going to pass on. If they choose, they can select new bodies and come for another cycle. It's fine. We don't like it. And I think the Western concept of death is really a very selfish one, because
yeah, it is.
Those who pass on are happy. The people they leave behind are not happy. And I get it, sure. We want them to hang out. But I think we get to we take it to such an extreme that it's really selfish to want to keep somebody who's ailing, to want them to keep around. And sometimes these people make decisions that cause needless surgeries, pain to their bodies, just so they can hang around with the people that don't want them to leave. It's really silly. I think it's time to get over this shit.
I agree.
So anyway, what we're continuing to see is a increasing pace of creation, and so we will see things come and go very quickly. And if we look at the cycle that we're in, this too will pass very quickly. I've read some astrological views. The Vedic astrological view is that we are in a 18.5-year cycle pattern where something very dramatic happens. 18.5 years ago was 9/11, and we all remember that because we're in the US. 18.5 years before that was the beginning of the AIDS epidemic. And we can go back to these cycles and go back and see that these things have I think the Kennedy assassination was a 18.5-year cycle event. And so this is just a downturn. This is just it's probably a minor blip. And the other thing that makes me have this understanding that was really quite different than it was 10 years ago is I have a greater sense of cosmology. And within the Hindu cosmology, and you may remember that I talked about this a little bit, is that in Hindu cosmology, we are moving into what is referred to as Sat Yuga, or the age of light and truth, where we are coming out of, and depending on who you like, and you may remember this from my talk, some believe that we are already out of Kali Yuga, age of darkness, and some believe that we are still in a pattern of emerging out of Kali Yuga. And in Sat Yuga is a time of expansion. So it's a general consensus, I'd say, that we are coming out of Kali Yuga and into Sat Yuga. And if we are, in fact, in that period of expansion, which I think we are, then we'll continue to see things moving in an expanded way very rapidly. just think about how quickly wealth has increased. I mean, where does the money come from? Where does the money come from? It literally comes out of thought. And it's expanding so rapidly that we cannot even conceive of the way economic activity and the wealth of individuals has changed. So we're just looking at we're looking at a blip, and we're looking at a downturn, and in a long term, we're looking at cycles and progressively larger elements of growth.
It's hard for my body to accept that so few people are getting exponentially rich. Like the hardship of what's happening right now for service workers or people that are just out of work because things are closing down. My partner is managing a domestic violence shelter, and they're trying to keep the doors open and all that. And so what are your thoughts on that? Like, is there anything there that you could just speak to? Do you feel like that's shifting? I feel like it's shifting. Like that just a couple people exponentially getting rich is not viable anymore. Like people are really starting to break that cycle. There's an intolerance that's there.
There is a disparity in wealth. And in fact, there's a disparity in points of view. What and Cycle will bring is, I don't know. I can't, you can't really put a face on it pretty well. I've been a pretty good dad, and I'm a pretty good granddad. And I also have done a pretty good job understanding masters. And what I'm talking about in masters is those who have very elevated consciousness. People like in the way past, Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, but there are also recent ones. There are recent mystics that we can look at, and whose words we can ponder. We may not accept it. We may not even like it. We may hate it. As a matter of fact.
Well said. Yes.
And that all creation springs forth from the mind. And that, in fact, the world does come out of our being. And if we don't like what we are creating, then we'll have to figure out a way to rethink our reality. And that's literally where we have to go with this, is we have to rethink our reality. It's difficult. It's really difficult. Like the concept of death. Well, there is no death. We just keep going. The body will come and go. Bodies come and go, but our awareness, our consciousness is eternal. I am eternal. You are eternal. In fact, there's no separation between us. That's what's meant. There's a consciousness. To even call it one consciousness is redundant, because there is only consciousness, and we're part of this consciousness. So I've studied the masters quite thoroughly as they can be studied.
So one of the concepts that you really resonate with is radical personal responsibility.
Radical personal responsibility, where you accept 100% responsibility for everything that's happening in your life. It wasn't caused by you. It wasn't caused by another individual. It was self-created. And that's a very difficult concept to hold, particularly if you are still confused that you are the body. I'm getting into really esoteric stuff here that might not be very practical, but that is the essence of it.
It's stepping stones. So what you're talking about is, and we have to be careful to not do spiritual bypass, but you have trauma, shit happens to you.
It does.
There is shadow. There are dark things that happen. There are environmental difficulties. It's not a level playing field. You have to process that, right? Because that's what gets us out of the guilt and the shame and the victimization and all of that, is truly processing that and validating the trauma that we've experienced. But then you do get to an elevated place that you're talking about, of realizing that there's a much bigger thing that's happening. And then you get into what I call, it's sort of the symbols, or it's the sort of conceptual life, archetypal life. It's like it has this And then you start moving those pieces around, and then we can really understand what you're talking about, which is like this thing then becomes this thing, then becomes that thing. And it's like mind blowing, right? It just makes your brain go like,
Yes. And I'm not saying that I'm right and that
Sure.
somebody else is wrong. You know, there's a concept of we're all climbing the mountain. There's only one mountaintop, but many, in fact, where there's about 7.5 billion humans now on the planet. There are 7.5 billion paths up the mountain. And if you're in the valley, you are going to have a very different view than if you're closer to the summit. And that doesn't mean that the view in the valley is wrong. That's just the view you have. And the people who are closer to the summit have been in the valley too, and they shouldn't forget that they've been in the valley. So it's not that one concept is wrong than another. I'm just saying that as long as we hold the view that we are the body, then we're going to have challenges.
Sure.
But it takes evolution, I suppose, to get beyond. You know, for example, so how did I get to where I am? And so I'm thinking, well, by the grace of God, I really didn't have anything to do with it. I'm just here. So when there's another framework of thinking that I have, or that I espouse, is the concept of non-duality, or Advaita. And that concept is that there is doing, but there is no doer. And it's very, I don't want to really go into it because, you know, we don't have years. We have a few moments together here. But whenever something is happening that I don't like, I just go back to the Advaita and say, whatever happened was supposed to happen. And whatever wasn't supposed to happen didn't happen. I still may not like it. You know, I still may be unhappy about it, but at least conceptually, I can just say, whatever happened was supposed to happen. If we didn't have these dark times like we're in right now, we'd never reach out for God. If we were, when the times when we're fat and happy, we don't care. We're just going along, bipping along. But it's during these dark times that we go within.
Radical acceptance. You're like, if you can accept what has happened, it gives you the opening and the momentum and the energy to look forward and not get stuck in a hole.
Not get stuck. But going back to what the money part, because let's face it, we deal in a physical world. It's nice to have some money. It's fun to have some money. We need some money to get around, and we're certainly I mean, a lot of people are struggling with this. I'm far more worried about, not worried, but the suffering around the economic consequences of this. Yeah, there'll be some people who pass on. They choose to leave the body. That's all. And I want to stress here, they choose to leave the body. We may not like it, we may not see it, but they choose to leave their bodies at a certain time. But the economic consequences of this will be so far-reaching that it's really quite unimaginable. Those who are fortunate have jobs and they get to go on unemployment insurance, but there are a lot of small business people, like you're a small business person. If people stop seeing you, you don't get paid. You don't go to the unemployment office and collect a paycheck from them.
Correct.
So I think that is real suffering. But then I used to work in federal programs, and I know money will come out. So I would advise small business owners to document their losses, because I think there may be programs coming out that will allow for losses. I mean, a lot of businesses are getting shut down because of government edict. So the government should also accept some responsibility for these businesses not being able to thrive.
I agree
by compensating them. And I think it's probable that something like that. So small business owners should start documenting their losses. And so, I think even, I think probably all of Congress is getting behind some kind of stimulus to
Okay, but
support people.
can I just ask you, when this happened before, I feel like it's 2008, and maybe I don't have the right date, but didn't we just mostly bail out big banks and not help a lot of the little people? Do you think this will be different this time, is kind of what I'm curious about, because it feels like it will be different.
Well, I think there were, there were homeowner bailouts. There were, banks just ate losses on overvalued homes. And so I think there was some economic relief. I would say that the economic conditions that we have right now are quite different than what happened in 2008. And I don't know that anybody truly understands, cause and effect back then. And if I go back to Advaita, I'd have to say, well, there is no cause and effect. So. But I think the fears are real. People are hurting. People are truly, truly afraid. I hope for the best. I just hope for the best, and that people will, that there will be some kind of relief packages for small business owners, and there's already an expansion of unemployment benefits for people who lose their jobs. One of the
restaurant owners that posted on Instagram, because here in the state of Oregon, the governor has said that things can be to go, but restaurants don't have to close, but they can be to go. And that isn't actually going to work for a lot of the businesses. And
True.
So one of the business owners went so far as to post on Instagram, yes, I am laying off employees because their employees are running into a lot of bureaucratic roadblocks to their unemployment application process. And so they're literally going on Instagram and saying, yes, I laid off these people because they're trying to advocate for their employees. So yeah, I hope that gets worked out.
I think the response at state and federal levels will be fairly quick. I think everybody agrees that this is a very dire situation, and on a individual level, if you still have money, go get some fucking takeout, for God's sake.
Right.
I went to get some pizza yesterday, and they said, "Thank you for coming in. You're only the third person."
Oh.
So go get some fucking takeout, And so, but so going back to the kind of finances that I was talking about back in 2008, and astrologers have been looking to this time slot for decades, even wondering what's going to happen.
What's going to happen?
Yes. In fact, one astrologer a year ago started saying, I don't know what's going to happen, but start building your immune system. We are building our immune system. There was one of the great ones that I met 20 years ago. He talked about this time of being a time of the genetic, the genetics of humans becoming stronger. And I'd say building antibodies to viruses is also part of building genetics. And what he talked about was that this was all about, and this was a Hindu master from a 6,000 year lineage. He was not some goofy guy like me, He was, when he said something, you have to take that seriously. And so he talked about the incoming light, the incoming energies, which we will need stronger bodies to be able to keep our bodies afloat. And so maybe this is just part of that. Maybe this is part of building more antibodies in our bodies, so that the spiritual energies that are coming in and are increasing will be able to be absorbed by our bodies.
Yeah, so we can assimilate and integrate the light. Absolutely.
So anyway, we're in a very tough time band right now. For those of you who are interested in an astrological view, there's Joni Patry, Jonipatri. She's a Vedic astrologer. And she's got some great videos. A financial astrologer that I like, Raymond Merriman. You have to buy his service. He does give a free newsletter that you can sign up for. But the probability is this will all be gone by June. And that in all probability, we'll see the stock market come roaring back. I think economic activity may take a little bit longer. There will be some industries that will suffer more than others. My youngest daughter works in the travel industry, and they're laying people off left and right, and she's very, very worried. And that those industries may take off more slowly. On the other hand, I mean, I could go travel somewhere sunny, but I couldn't eat. So, it would be the point. So, and I'm dying to get the hell out of here and go hit the tropics, but where am I going to eat? So, so anyway, it looks like both the coronavirus and the extreme volatility we're facing in the financial markets are going to be probably over by June, if not well in advance of that. And maybe we'll start seeing some changes occurring as early as April.
So it's just those small businesses, and maybe nonprofits surviving these couple weeks, months of difficulty and turbulence. So it sounds like your message is like, document your losses, hang in there, look for what the government is going to offer in terms of.
I think there'll be relief packages.
Mm-hmm.
I really think so, for small business owners.
Mm-hmm. I'm just curious, have you always been spiritual? Was it part of your upbringing? Like, where does the kind of passion for spirituality come from for you?
Well, it actually started out in high school in Mr. Hadley's class, his physics class. And he said, energy can neither be created or destroyed. And I'm going, And so I started, the difference between me and some cadaver is some kind of energy. And so since that energy seems to have left that cadaver's body, but the energy that's in me is still present, then what is that energy all about? And so that's really, so it goes back quite a ways. Experimenting with psychedelics when I was younger, I had some very interesting experiences. Really took a huge propulsion forward after I got a divorce in 1995. And it just, I was very unhappy. It was a very difficult time for me. And but
I hear you on that. I've been divorced twice.
Yeah, it's very
I
painful.
highly recommend getting out of a bad marriage, right, Frank?
Well, I really wasn't a bad marriage. It was so many good things about it. I got kids out of it.
Yep.
Again, there's no such thing as bad from my way of thinking. And so, in fact, I celebrate my ex-wife in that we did a really good job raising the kids together, even after we were divorced. Maybe we did an even better job after we were divorced. But that really propelled me forward, and that really has brought me to wanting to understand the mysteries of life. And so the mystery is no mystery to the mystic, which is what I found out. And so one of those mystical elements is love. And I really think that lovingness is an attainable state for all of us. That doesn't mean you don't get pissed off. That doesn't mean you don't want to kick people's asses sometimes even on a regular basis. That doesn't mean you like everything. But I think a state of lovingness is attainable for anyone who's seriously interested in spiritual growth. And that's one of the first undertakings I want to have that's based on this. When I spent over a year doing social media posts, and all my social media posts were just getting someone's attention, just like that. In today's information world, if you don't catch somebody's attention in like 0.6. Going back to this, I really think love is the antidote to everything. and but not, we have a concept of love as in many ways of possessiveness, of ownership, like romantic love. But lovers love because they can't do anything else. And so it does, the idea of objectified love is really a very limiting framework of the concept of love. And so there is a love that reaches beyond objectification, and when you reach that state, you can't help but love. And I really think that Mr. Rogers embodied love. He was love. When you embody love, you are love itself. There are other people, Sister Teresa of India, she embodied love, and the Dalai Lama, he embodies love.
Would you say that you think Mr. Rogers was a mystic?
Well, that's a
think
difficult term. Love is a mystical state because it is beyond the mind. It cannot be conceptualized. So within the framework that it's beyond the mind, I would say, yeah, it's mystical. And so
I think
love is a mystery to most people. Love is a mystery. And so one of the things in my project is that if you start to understand how mystics view love, then you will begin arriving at a state of lovingness which has no object. And people say, well, how many people can I get to join me? And my response to that is, we just need you.
Who cares? Yeah,
just
absolutely. You. Yes. I love that. I love that you're like, just you. What are you missing here? Yeah. So embodying love and seeing it as a verb, right? It's like, when you meditate, you run your energy, you breathe into these broken parts of yourself, and that is love. And so if I'm not, I can just tell you on a practical level, if I'm not loving myself or liking myself, if someone is loving me, I tend to bristle and be more in my pain body. So that work of just being in love, as you're talking about, is so important, because that's when you catch all the good stuff.
It starts with yourself. I've always maintained that you cannot love another any more than you love yourself. That's where the boundary is for everyone. And so the lovingness starts at home, and you are home. You are home base.
So for myself personally, I've loved people that didn't love themselves, and I've stayed looped in that cycle of, if I can love them enough, they'll heal or something. So it's been really liberating to really embody what you just said of like, wait, they can't love me fully, and that has nothing to do with me. That's about them. I just need to work on loving myself. And oftentimes I've loved myself right out of a couple relationships that were not good for me.
Well, that's a weight loss program.
I love it. Frank, let's end here, because we've got some good stuff. I will edit it down. Is there anything you want to say before we go? We can definitely do this again. Is there anything you want to add? Yeah.
If people want to find me on Facebook or on Instagram, I would love. In fact, I'm planning to start a new Facebook site called "Share the Hell Out of This Shit," and because I really want people to share my stuff. I think some people like it, and if more people can be exposed to it, then that would be great. And it's free. For fuck's sake, it's free.
Take it. It's free. Well, thank you so much for being on here. It's meant.
Well, it's nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too. Thank you so much, sweetie. You're the best.
Bye.
Bye, love.
Bye.